Xi Jinping is the undisputed paranoid dictator of China, but he's not the final boss. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell, and we've got a problem. More and more people the world over are realizing the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. A global survey by the Pew Research Center shows historically high negative views of China. Even the incredibly partisan U.S. government is finding unity when it comes to tackling the CCP. So what's the problem? The problem is a lot of very influential, powerful people don't think the Chinese Communist Party is the problem. They think Xi Jinping is. And that's a very important distinction to make. I've been seeing articles like this lately. Will China's elite ever rise up? 5 ways China has become more repressive under President Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has fallen into the dictator trap. Xi Jinping's terrifying new China. The hidden premise behind all of these articles, and the line of thought I'm seeing from think tanks, academics, and influential politicians, is that there was no problem with the Chinese Communist Party before Xi Jinping. And if we can just get rid of Xi Jinping, things will go back to being great. A few years ago, the Atlantic Council, a prestigious think tank, published an anonymous report called The Longer Telegram. The anonymous author clearly wanted to compare his report to the Long Telegram, an actual telegram sent by George Kennan, an American diplomat in Moscow, to the State Department in 1946. Kennan basically clearly saw the Soviet Union for what it was, correctly predicted what the communist government would do during the Cold War, and laid out what became known as the containment strategy that the U.S. used during the Cold War. So whoever wrote the Longer Telegram clearly has a pretty high view of his China strategy. And what is his China strategy? Well, the anonymous author spells it out in this opinion piece he wrote for Politico. The U.S. should focus on Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Now, number one, the U.S. and regime change, not the greatest track record. But also, this view completely ignores the fact that it's been the same Communist Party all along. Xi didn't really change anything. Well, he did change one thing, and I'll get to that in a minute. But these anti-Xi people are not anti-CCP. They want the CCP to stay in power, and here's why. The ruler of China after Mao, Deng Xiaoping, opened up China to foreign investment. He also ordered the massacre of students in Tiananmen. His successor, Jiang Zemin, further opened up China to Western business, wooing foreign business executives. He also began a mass campaign of literally harvesting the organs of countless Falun Gong practitioners, and began building China's internet firewall and security state. Hu Jintao carried all that on, as well as mass crackdowns on Tibetans and Uyghurs. But business was great. Well, not really. China was still ruthlessly stealing the intellectual property of American businesses stupid enough to go to China. That cost the American economy about $600 billion a year. Under Xi, things didn't get worse for Chinese people. They've always been horrible. But it did get worse for the foreigners who were having a good time in China and making money. They can't do that anymore. And that's why they're upset. They never cared about the Chinese people or human rights. They didn't care about the Falun Gong practitioners getting their organs ripped out. If the world had cared and held China accountable, then maybe the Uyghurs in Xinjiang right now wouldn't be getting their organs harvested. A lot of people think the Longer Telegram was written by Kevin Rudd, the former Australian Prime Minister and Asia Society President. When he was Prime Minister, Australia got real close to China. And when Jiang Zemin died, Rudd wrote a glowing obituary of the man, steward of China's rise. Jiang was a colorful, entertaining, larger-than-life Chinese leader. Now, to be fair, Rudd does mention Jiang's brutal domestic and international campaign against Falun Gong, and that it was Jiang who initiated China's first patriotic education campaign. But overall, the impression is that Jiang was a reformer. And Rudd wasn't alone in that view. Jiang was a tough-talking reformer, an influential reformer, who paved the way for China's rise. No, he was a genocidal maniac. And those takes are going to age very poorly when Jiang is someday up there in the ranks of Hitler or Stalin. The problem is this anti-Xi, pro-CCP line can easily be taken advantage of by Xi's opponents. For example, this piece by Nikkei Asia uses insider sources to say party elite reprimanded Xi at an important meeting of top party officials. That definitely plays into the hope some have of China's elite rising up against Xi Jinping. According to China Uncensored, a risk consultancy that specializes in elite Chinese politics, it is possible that the Jiang faction and the anti-Xi coalition are behind the information, with the article serving as political mobilization to rally anti-Xi forces both inside and outside China to step up their pushback against Xi and his leadership. And the reason this is such a problem is because we could find ourselves in a situation where Xi is purged, but the same old Chinese Communist Party with the same old tyrants would still be in charge of China. And this anti-Xi coalition, both in China and abroad, would take things back to the way things used to be. The CCP massacring Chinese people and robbing us blind, and no one saying anything. Except for me screaming into the void for another 10 years, which you can support for a small monthly contribution on our exclusive social media site, ChinaUncensored.locals.com. You can interact with me and other fans of the show with no trolls, and can ask me questions I'll answer on the show. Today's question comes from DPR of DC. Serious question. Will Kissinger be remembered as a hero or hot garbage for his role in U.S.-Taiwan-China relations? Oh boy, Kissinger. He's a large part of the reason for all the problems with how the U.S. has treated the CCP. He pushed what became known as the engagement school, that we need to engage with China, and that will transform the CCP into a democracy. I think it's pretty clear after decades of failure, that's not going to happen. But the people who think Xi is the problem and not the CCP are also thinking along these same lines. Everything was going great till Xi came along. It's not that the engagement school was wrong from the beginning. So when Kissinger dies, I fully expect to see lots of obituaries praising him, in particular for how he opened up China to the West. But someday, when the CCP falls, there will be a reckoning for everyone who supported one of the most evil regimes in history. And speaking of, how often do you think about Rome? It's an important question I answer in this video from our new channel, Gamers Unbeaten. Click on it, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for your question and your support, DPR of DC, and thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.